Your Excellency, welcome to CNBC. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Dan. Happy to be here.
The Aramco CEO told me that Shareek is already a catalyst for economic growth in the kingdom. What impact is it having on the numbers?
So we have plans to crowd in and support private sector investment up to 5 trillion riyals, maybe even more with that upside. And I think the beauty of Shareek is that it is demonstrating a new way for private sector and public sector to collaborate in ways where these returns or this liquidity or these assets were not utilized in this fashion before. With the support of the government and with the ambition of these private sector enterprises, we were able to set the course for a path that can create more investment into the kingdom, more export potential beyond that, and help us with our economic diversification and restructuring agenda. So while our plans are there, you've seen we've announced some projects that are helping us get there. I think the ambition is to get to 5 trillion in a few years' time, and we will continuously be updating you.
On that diversification specifically, the Finance Minister Al-Jadam says the country is going to be decoupled from oil by 2030. I think the hope is that by then the government won't even need to look at the oil price. Is that a realistic timeline?
That's the ambition, and we believe we can achieve it. We today have set some tools and some measures to avoid the procyclicality in our public spending. We've also carved out 2 funds that are helping with this economic transitions, the Public Investment Fund and the National Development Fund. Both will help empower the private sector and crowd them in the long term. And then thirdly, the private sector. We have a target for the private sector to contribute to the economy at a rate of 65% versus the 44% we have today and the below 40 percentage indicator we had before Vision 2030. So we'll continue to rely on oil. We'll utilize oil production for various other industries smartly. We'll continue to rely on oil's revenues, but we want as much as possible our economic activity to detach itself from relying on the fluctuations in the oil market.
And of course, this economic transformation has been underway for a while now. What do you need to do next to accelerate that economic transformation to make sure that Vision 2030 is still on target?
Definitely move ahead with our plans with the new sectors that all fall into tourism. We have culture, entertainment, sports, and other sectors that support tourism. These are sectors that are starting anew. They're still fresh, and they're witnessing a lot of investment, a lot of job creation that will help us also build that infrastructure that will attract the talent, attract the companies, and attract operations into the kingdom. On the other hand, it's industry. Industry in the broader sense is what you want to focus on. Advanced manufacturing, even mining and technology reliant industries, innovative-driven enterprises. All of these are things we want to continue to focus on to improve our export portfolio, non-oil export portfolio, and help us compete as an economy and its players in global markets more competitive.
And you're speaking to us today from the Financial Sector Conference. Saudi Arabia was, of course, the fastest growing economy in the G20 last year. What are some of the economic priorities now that you're working on to drive that growth forward?
Definitely. So we witnessed 8.7% in growth in 2022. We attribute that a lot to the ambitious transformation that started 7 years earlier. Our non-oil activities last year were growing at its fastest rate in some quarters, fastest in 11 years. We want to continue that non-oil activity growth, and we want to continue this transformation. As I said, these 2 buckets of sectors, if you will, are going to be our priority moving forward. Underlying it is continued investment in the people, education, and healthcare and human capital development outcomes, because we are a very young population. 63% are below the age of 30 of the population. Also, on top of that, we want to continue this export-driven agenda, or we want to diversify our non-oil exports. We want to make them more complex, and we want to make them more competitive. That is the priority moving forward. We have, of course, a lot of mega projects that are anchoring new sectors that have been started. And we have very exciting acceleration in some sectors, such as mining. We believe Saudi is going to lead the evolution of the mining industry globally and take the lead on that discussion. And we think we will witness in the next few years innovation and progress that will be faster than what we witnessed in this specific industry in the last 3 decades.
Of course, one of the key concerns in financial and economic circles at the moment, at least this week, has been the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and, of course, the wider contagion that we're now seeing from the crisis of confidence around Credit Suisse. Saudi Arabia is a very interconnected global economy. How is it impacting Saudi Arabia and the region?
So Saudi Arabia is getting more interconnected as we go because of Vision 2030. And we look at all events in the financial markets globally and other markets very closely and with a lot of scrutiny. We continue to monitor how these can affect our plans, our programs, and we intervene when it's needed. I will not comment on specific examples or specific banks, but I can tell you that the whole government is looking at all of these global events with an understanding that they may affect us or they may offer opportunities for our economy with a lot of attention and a lot of due care. And then we will intervene as needed. I can also add to that that we have a very, we have fiscal expansion in a time of tightening today in the monetary markets. And that could be something that will counter any trickle-down effects or challenges on our monetary market.
Are you concerned at all by this situation abroad and its ability to perhaps impact a willingness to invest among international investors?
We are looking at it closely, and we want to make sure that it will not have any impact on our plans, on our growth. We're confident that it wouldn't, but we are monitoring this as it's evolving very fast in hours, actually, including today, and making sure that it would not have that kind of impact. But detached a little bit from that, we believe the opportunity, the real economy opportunities that exist in Saudi Arabia today offer a very attractive long-term value proposition for investors. Saudi Arabia wants to be a home for people who want to come in here and grow, whether they grow their investments or grow their families or grow personally. And we believe that that real economy value proposition and opportunity set should be captured with a long-term mindset and a long-term mentality.
And the reason I asked the question is because oil, which is critical to the Saudi economy, as you've just been explaining, is being hit hard by this. We've already seen crude prices losing about 10% this month alone. So in your view, how closely are you watching the fall in the oil price, and how far do prices have to fall before Saudi Arabia and OPEC Plus act?
We look at it very closely, and our mandate is long-term market stability, as we have mentioned several times before. And we have a budget plan for this year and the next few years with a medium-term fiscal framework that ensures that we are ready for any shocks or any changes in the market. We are confident that in the long term, the market will be stable, and that's what we've been driving to achieve.
And just macroeconomically, inflation, rising interest rates, the possibility of recession, of course, the impact of Russian sanctions, all lingering across the global economy and impacting Saudi Arabia. Where do you see the greatest threat or risks to regional financial stability today?
So we're looking at inflation globally, and we've noticed that the story has changed a little bit in the US and more recently in Europe, and it seems it's more sticky than ever before. In Saudi, we believe inflation last reported months had slowed down in terms of its acceleration. So there is a lag, a 6 to 7 month lag. We're continuously monitoring what's going on in inflation globally. We know that there will be more hikes in this monetary tightening environment. But at the same time, as I mentioned to you, we also have a fiscal expansionary environment at the same time. So maybe this is a good thing for Saudi, where these two forces can balance each other out, and we avoid any overheating that could be a concern, any overheating in the economy that could be a concern. So again, we monitor and we intervene depending on the evidence and depending on what we conclude requires an intervention.
What type of growth target do you think you can achieve this year?
We've expressed during the budget announcement a forecast of 3.1 this year, which is a bit of a change over 2022, but it's mainly driven by oil activities. Our plan is to grow our non-oil activities. We don't publish these numbers or their forecasts, but I can tell you that we plan to grow them at the same pace, if not faster, than what we witnessed in 2022.
I wanted to ask you about regional cooperation as well. Saudi Arabia and Iran have mended ties. The finance minister told CNBC this week that Saudi Arabia could invest in Iran very quickly, in fact. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. I think Saudi Arabia is committed to regional stability and committed to the security and the economic promise of the region, but as well as its stability. And these ongoing discussions that have led to the announcement a few days ago are just an example of Saudi Arabia's commitment. And obviously, with that stability comes a lot of economic promise and economic opportunity and a chance for prosperity and peace to be sustainable and long-term. We want to build and we want to focus on making Saudi Arabia and the region achieve its potential.
And of course, Iran and Saudi Arabia have had their differences. Iran is also a country that's been really crippled by Western sanctions, government corruption, economic mismanagement. I mean, where specifically is the opportunity for Saudi Arabia there?
We believe with this agreement, it lays a foundation for more discussion and more dialogue, and hopefully where challenges can be addressed on both sides and opportunities can be tackled, I'd say, with a view to have a very long-term impact, not only on the relationship, but also on the region. And as much as possible, Saudi Arabia also would love to share its success stories and its support in these venues.
Do you see opportunity for collaboration in the energy sector, for example? Could Saudi Arabia help Iran to commercialize its oil reserves?
I think this is too soon to tell. I think what we should be focusing on is what was agreed recently and focusing on the commitment that Saudi Arabia has to make the region stable. We've, of course, been collaborating with all OPEC Plus members throughout this whole period.
Could there be economic benefits in normalization deals with other countries as well, like Israel, for example, of which Saudi Arabia has also had significant differences with?
I think obviously this is something that can be an upside, but the kingdom's position has been clear. An independent state for Palestine is important for any discussion to begin.